Salutations Rangers, General Belly 101 back again with some more lore. And today's video, boys and girls, we're taking a look at the elite of the elite of the elite and what are possibly the best guard that the Imperium has to offer. Because today, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking at the Cadian Kasrkin. And in this video, we're gonna find out just if these guys are actually the best troopers that the Imperial Guard has to offer. That of course isn't any super specialized secret bodyguard of like Lord Inquisitor, High Lord, Lucifer Black or whatever the hell. But ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's crack like an arm with today's video and answer the question, are the Kasakin the greatest troopers that the Imperium has to offer? So, what exactly are Kasakin? Kasakin are the elite variation of the standard Cadian shock trooper unit, aka they are the Tempestus Scion version. For those who don't know, the standard Imperium trooper has an upgrade, that being the Tempestus Scion, armed with a Hellshot lasgun as well as carapace armor, trained to operate more specifically as well as elite operations troopers or shock troopers, depending on the role of the particular regiment. But generally speaking, they are marked by enhanced training, enhanced equipment or gear, and generally speaking a higher survival rate, or death rate, again depending on whichever regiment. In the case of the Kasakin, they are the specifically trained elite versions of the Cadians that are meant to guard the Kazakhs. Kazakhs being the name for fortress in the native Cadian dialect. These were massive city bunker complexes created on Cadia itself, and they were meant to be bastions to defend against the hordes of the incoming traitors. And these Kazakin, hence where they get their name from, were created specifically to defend, protect, and man these vital, important bastions on the world of Cadia itself. Now, this meant a couple of things. One, there were much more Kasakin than normal compared to other regiments because of the nature of the bastions, how big they were, how many they were, but two, they were trained from a very, very young age. Whilst all Cadians were trained to be incredibly well disciplined, and the fact that indeed the majority of Kasakin were taken from veteran units already established, the Kasakin made a very, very, very hard attempt to pick out white shields, that being the PDF of Cadia, i.e. the training before a guardsman, who were already adept at strategy and training, and implement them into the training of themselves. Combine that with the recruitment of already veteran guardsmen, you gain this unique blending of already hardcore veteran soldiers, but with the manpower of a normal regiment. It was a very interesting take and a very adaptive take that led to them amassing a great number of them, but still retaining a high degree of effectiveness and skill. Kasakin were trained in every and all forms of combat, from drop assault to straight on shock trooper assault to infiltration to anything in between. If an elite infantry could do it, the Kasakin would do it. But there were two roles in which the Kasakin excelled tremendously. That being defensive troopers, as again they were meant to guard Kazakhs, meaning that they have an in-depth knowledge of how to defend a fortress, and bodyguards. Kasakin are noted even amongst other Cadians to have a unique type of self-sacrifice. They are more than willing to throw their lives away to ensure that an enemy is dead, or that a charge is protected. One of the two, or in most cases, both at the same time. They are armed, as I said, with carapace armor but also hellguns, but it's very note. The hellguns and carapace armor that the Cadians are armed with are some of the most best crafted that the Imperium has to offer, period, as these are usually manufactured on either Cadia itself or worlds that Cadia has deemed appropriate, making some of the best gear that a normal trooper can get, let alone a Tempestus Scion. In terms of their weapons, they love the grenade launchers and plasma guns. But also, what sets them apart from other Tempestus Scion units is that they're known to enjoy close quarters combat. Particularly, with the nature of them being defensive-minded troops, the idea of close quarters combat and holding a choke point is ingrained inherently in there. Thus, they've gained quite the reputation for using them and quite a love, with power weapons and chainswords being common amongst their ranks. Indeed, we have accounts of Cadian Kasrkin bayonet charging other foes, which is rather unusual for normal Tempestus Scions, but is even more unusual when you hear what foes these guys would charge. Literally anyone, from orcs all the way up to Chaos Space Marines, and even Cornate Berserkers. Cadian Kasrkin were the definition of fearless, but also effective. But we'll talk a bit more about that a little later. So you combine all of these facts together. The fact that they had the best of the best equipment, the fact that they had the largest numbers of, generally speaking, almost any Tempestus Scion lookalike regiment, the fact that they were fearless, that they engaged in melee, well, how could they get any better? Well, they could get better in that they had a version above these. Particularly for generals, colonels, and other high-ranking officers, they would get a bodyguard of veteran Kasakin. These were Kasakin warriors who had proven themselves above and beyond the standard duty and be exemplars of the creed of the Imperialis, but more specifically what it meant to be a Kasakin, a warden of the Kazakh. And they were said to have advanced weapons and arms and armor of the standard Kasakin, Now, what this means, we don't really know. We never really get a good understanding of a veteran Kasakin in any form of media up close and personal, so we just know that they're better than normal Kasakin and that they have better stuff, but we don't know exactly how better. So it could be anything from mastercrafted like carapace armor all the way up to power armor, if the general has access to power armor. But if he had access to power armor, he'd probably be wearing it himself. It's odd. Don't take it too much at face value. They have better shit than the real Kasakin, simple as. But these veteran Kasakin are said to be even more steely disciplined. They're said to operate with such immense prowess that even Space Marines are impressed by their level of discipline that they can achieve, and some even older breeds have compared them to the Solar Auxilia of the past. Okay, but there's your tale yarn about the Kasakin and how amazing and awesome they are. And also I forgot to mention the drip. Look at these guys. They're just so good. But now that I've explained them to you, I now have to justify my statement beforehand. Now, why on earth would I say these guys are the best troopers that the Imperium has to offer? Well, that's because we have a couple examples of these guys engaging in combat, and them proving themselves to be absolute monsters, particularly against one type of enemy, that being Chaos Space Marines. So, first one and the major one we're going to be looking at is, of course, the Fall of Cadia. As we go through that series of novels, we see time and time again regular Cadian troopers actually fighting off against actual Chaos Space Marines. And we've actually concrete numbers for once, which is rather nice in 40k. Lord Urkthanos is commenting on the amount of losses that his boys are taking compared to the Cadians, and how dramatically stupid it is. For every 30 guardsmen slain, he has lost one Hound of Abaddon, aka one Cornate Berserker in the service of the Black Legion. And these are just regular Cadians, mind you, which means that if we apply this logic to Kasakin, we know that it's going to be less than 30. Generally speaking, it's agreed upon that this number is about 20. That's about 20 Cadian Kasakin for every one Cornate Chaos Space Marine. And even if it's not the case, even if it's the same as a regular guardsman, when you consider that trade, it is beyond wild. It states that one Cornate Berserker should be worth 100. Now, this is the same chap, Urkthanos, who is commenting on this. So the fact that he's losing one Hound for every 30 and at worst case 20 normal guardsmen is incredibly crazy. He goes so far to call it unnatural. The Cornate Chaos Space Marine Lord is calling the fighting of these normal men and women unnatural. Let that sink in for a hot second. Now, yes, of course, this is indeed a Cadian book, so the Cadians are meant to look good, but still, that's a wild translation. Because when you consider it, it's said that about 100 Space Marines can conquer a world, right? So then we have 100 Space Marines versus, let's say, 3,000 Kasakin. Now, Kasakin are pretty expensive to make compared to a normal Cadian trooper, but we consider the fact that 3,000 Kasakin can easily be made with less resources than needed from one planet. And you compare that to 100 Chaos Space Marines who are said to have the same potential of combat power to conquer that world. That trade is beyond ludicrous. And again, there's only 30 guardsmen. We don't know how many Kasakin it could be. Again, I said 20, hell, maybe it could even be 15, and God forbid, maybe even 10. Now, some people may be saying, oh no, that's unlikely. But we do know that when Kasakin are properly supported in a fortified position, which is their home, they can do a lot of damage. In fact, we know of one particular Kasakin who has a kill record of at least 4 during the battle. Now, granted, he did have a volley gun as well as using a heavy bolter, but the fact of the matter is that he survived. All of that combined means that the fact of the matter is we have a Cadian Kasakin that has killed 4, I repeat, 4 Chaos Cornate Berserkers. Now, yes, he didn't do it alone, but the fact of the matter is that all those resources combined do not equal 4 Chaos Space Marines. That is a massive change in the dynamic of when we think of Guardsmen versus Space Marines. And again, another example that again comes from the Fall of Cadia is when a Kasakin company leads a large amount of Cornate Berserkers. We don't exactly know how much, but it's said to be a lot. So probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 maybe? It's said to be a decent group, and they lead them into a city building. And as they're engaging to them in hand-to-hand combat, they blow the melter charges, killing all of them, bringing the building down. Meaning that for 100 to 200 guardsmen, they killed anywhere from 20 to 50 Khornate berserkers. Another example we have is during the Ormupton raid. Now, in the Cadian system, there was this world called Ormupton. It was a small little mining world, but it was very close to the Cadian Gate, and more particularly, it had a listening post on it. This was essentially an early warning system for the rest of the Cadian system to be like, whoa, wait on, hold up, Chaos Boys are coming, get ready. And this was actually a quite well-known listening post, so much so that even Abaddon himself learned of it. And he would send an elite contingent of Black Legionnaires to go and wipe out that force. And whilst they would manage to do a lot of damage to the base, they hadn't managed to wipe it out completely. It was still there, and the only reason why it was still there, and why the Imperials were able to get a distress beacon sent out via their last astropath to a nearby Imperial cruiser, preventing the listening post from falling, is that for several solar hours, a small company of Kasakin Guard were standing there, holding the choke point of a narrow corridor against elite Space Marines. I will reiterate, normal elite human guardsmen were fighting in a narrow confines, in most likely close quarters combat with elite Space Marines, and they held them off for hours. And the funny thing is, there was still some Kasakin left when this was over. Now granted, that was because there was an intervention by what many believe to be actually the 13th Company of the Space Wolves, but that's a whole nother story. The fact of the matter is, these elite Kasakin held off Space Marines with makeshift barricades in close quarters confines of a base, stuff where Space Marines are supposed to excel at. They held them there for hours. Now, I could go on and on and on and on and on. I have like about 5 that I found during my research, 5 more mind you. Various from Cadian Kasrkin using explosives to heavy armor to everything in between. Even some of them killing a few of them in melee, which is, wild enough itself. Granted, a lot of them died in that melee, but still. But rather, I want to focus on what makes this possible. Why do Cadian Kasrkin in particular have such a high kill count against Chaos Space Marines? Because generally speaking, the other elites of other regiments have pretty good kill counts against anything else. But why is it that particularly against Chaos Space Marines, Cadian Kasrkin seem to just have an innate knack of fighting? And I have a theory for that. In these passages that we looked at, and when you read about Cadian Kasrkin, you notice 2 very important factors. 1, they are incredibly well armed and drilled. Consistently, they have some of the best armor, some of the best gear, and some of the best tactics, period. And they are honed into a fine edge. This we know. This is to be expected. As we have established, this is something that is not uncommon to any other elite guard regiment. But then why is it that Cadian Kasrkin seem to always have a leg up when fighting regular old Chaos Space Marines, as opposed to other elites and other Tempestus Scions? And that comes to my second reason. The mentality. Cadians in of themselves have a near unbreakable mentality. And we are shown this in the Return to Cadia series. True Cadians, who were born, raised, grew up on Cadia, who were trained all the way through the White Shields, have a near unbreakable psyche, and basically a near suicidal disregard for their own life and self-preservation. I don't know about you, but after emptying a pack of a lasgun into a Chaos Space Marine wordbearer possessed, and your next instinct is to pull out a fucking bayonet? Yeah, you got a couple things wrong with you, but in the best way possible, maybe. And again, we see in every single example that the Cadian Kasrkin are in, and especially when they are fighting Chaos Space Marines, they simply just don't give a fuck. One of the greatest advantages that a Chaos Space Marine has is the fear factor that they impose. The fact that they can cause you to make mistakes, the fact that they can cause you to fuck up, the fact that they can cause you to doubt yourself and doubt those around you. They don't have that when they fight Kasakin. In fact, it's so crazy to them that this isn't happening, that we have accounts of them noting it as well. Again, we go back to the Fall of Cadia and Lord Uthokos. He notes it himself, that the fact that they are throwing their lives away at reckless abandon that is uncommon amongst regular Imperial Guard. Again, it's something that he called perverse. And this is why Kasakin have such an edge up against Chaos Space Marines, and again why I say they are the greatest weapons and the greatest soldiers of the Imperium, is the sole fact that they are unbreakable. As I mentioned before, true purple-eyed Kasakin, grown, bred, and founded on Cadia, will not break against any foe. They will sell their lives gladly and ensure that every single drop of blood they spilled buys you several precious minutes to do what needs to be done and complete the mission. Simple as. Now immediately I can hear some people talking. Brad, what about the Krieg Grenadiers? What about the Catachan Devils? Now yes, those two units are very much like the Kasakin, but here is why I put the Kasakin above those two units. Those two units are incredibly specialized. Catachan Devils are very utterly amazing in a situation where you need stealth and ambush tactics, a la a jungle, but they're not exactly perfect for every single scenario. Again, the fact of the matter is that most of them don't wear heavy armor means they're not really the best shock troops. They can be used as such, but they're not as effective. And also, when you consider their mentality, Catachans are known to be very free-floating, very free-willed, and very strong-spirited. Yes, they will sell their lives dearly, yes, they will serve, but they will serve on their terms, and they will die on their terms. That spirit is something that makes them so unique and so prized, and it's not always conducive to a combat scenario. The Catachans know how to make it, and they always give their all whenever they do anything, but it's not always perfect in every situation. Same thing goes for the Kriegers. Kriegers are heavily armed, lots of grenades, simple as. But they lack the strategic flexibility that the Kasakin have. They are incredibly dogmatic. They will follow their orders to a letter, and they will never question running into a heavy bolter because it needs to be done. They won't question, hey, maybe we should try flanking around, maybe we should do that. They are dogmatic and they will follow orders to a T. Again, they're not suicidal, as many people get wrong, but they are far less likely to question an order than a Kasakin. And this is why I say the Kasakin are the best. Because if you say that these three are the best, well, a Kasakin are the perfect blend between the two. They have the free spirit and individuality of the Catachan, which the Kriegers so much lack, but it's not so much to a point where some may argue that they're actually being rebellious with the Catachan, and they have the great arms, armor, and discipline that the Kriegers are renowned for, that which sometimes the Catachan Devils end up lacking. So, as I said before, if these are the three best, the Kasakin are the middle ground, thus they have the best of both worlds, and whilst you may argue they're not as good in either respective role as the other two, but as the old saying goes, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but still better than a master of one. Not to mention, you might be asking, okay Brad, they may have been the best, but hey, what about now that Cadia's gone? Well that is the true thing. Yes, the Cadians did go through that weird inter-war period where they haven't found a new Cadia yet, so you get these weird mixture of pseudo-non-Cadians that break easily, that run away, that are not actually true Cadians. But however, ever since the establishment of New Cadia, we have established records of veteran elite Kasakin units going back to build up new Cadian Kazakhs and to train new Kasakin. The Cadians have founded a new world, and they are rebuilding their strength back up to the point that they can truly be the elite of the Imperial Guard. And Cadian High Command has specifically requested that Kasakin be brought back to Cadia to build new Kazakhs and to train them. So the future of the Cadians have already been secured. So again, we have these Cadian Kasakin, who've not only survived, held back, and everything in between, are objectively the best unit that the Imperial Guard has to offer that isn't super ultra hyper elite, that can be fielded across the width and breadth of the Imperium, and they're training brand new boys. Again, Cadian Kasrkin, I would say that they are indeed the best Imperial Guard unit. I think all these things that I've listed here make it more than abundantly clear that they are. Because whatever you need, a Cadian Kasrkin can fulfill it. And you know damn well, they are never going to run away until that job is done. And who knows, they may not get that job done exactly the way you want it, but they'll get it done, or they'll burn enough bodies to ensure that the enemy can't follow out their plans. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about today's video. Do you guys agree with me about the Cadian Kasrkin? Do you guys disagree with me? What do you guys think are truly the best unit in all of the Guard? Love to hear your thoughts down below. But I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for watching, and even more massive thank you to my awesome members and Patreons. And shout out to brand new member, CMD Nay 0416, who joined at the private tier. Welcome, my dear beloved fellow. I thank you sincerely for joining with us, and welcome to the core, my fella. Big shout out to my officer core with Mr. Eddie V3, Mr. Majora of the Void. Shout out to my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. Warsmith Fireheart, Mr. Corns Butcher, Mr. Bulwin, Mr. Sean IRL7, and Matthew Merrill. Big shout out to my Corporal tier members, Tremail the Math Kitty, Mr. Lord Rosarius, Mr. Tech Priest Toaster, and Shauna Smithers. And finally, but certainly not least, massive thank you to my private tier members, Mr. Thomas Moslons, Mr. Ivan_SBW, Mr. Hattori's Curse, Mr. Monkey Man, Mr. Michael Hayeda, Mr. Diego Castro, Mr. Fortus Unum, and Mr. Gentle Salamander. But thank you, each and every one of you, for all the wonderful, beautiful, awesome, amazing things y'all do to me. This channel is like here because of you guys, and thank you so much for that Space Wolves video, bro. The love on that has been wild. It's been a rough 2 months, so hearing you guys do that, and I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. I love y'all, and thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for watching. Mwah! But ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Brother 101. You've been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Thank you all so very much for watching. I'll make sure to stay low out there, boys and gals. And I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, strangers. Alright, cannot wait to get some random Monsieur Guard regiment that has like 2 words of lore on it, and that is actually so much better than the Kasakin. Go ahead, Paolo. Also, the Terrace Guard don't count.